my name is Tess Barantoni, and I'll be teaching you clarinet for the next few weeks. Sorry about behind me, I'm stuck in my basement to practice while I'm home from college, so bear with me here. Alright, so for today's lesson, we're going to be learning the concert B flat major scale, and then the concert G minor scale, and then I'll just be giving you some practice tips after that. Alright, so first things first, we're going to work on the concert B flat scale. So I'm sure by now you know that if your band director says we're going to play the concert B flat scale, that you actually have to play a C scale on the clarinet. Okay? So we're just going to start with the first measure for now. So what we're going to do is I'm going to play it first, and then we'll play it together whenever we play anything. And I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, we'll breathe on 4, and then we'll play. Alright? Before we do that, we'll just review some fingerings quick. So the first note is C, middle C. Below the staff C, not middle C. So it's the back finger, and then 1, 2, 3, do that. And then we just go up the scale, so we go up to D, lift your ring finger. And then from there we go to E, so you just lift your middle finger. And then for F, just lift your pointer finger, so it's just the back. Then for G, you just lift up your thumb, so there's no fingers down. For A, just this key right here in the front, if you can see that, just this key. And then B natural. So B natural, it's a lot of fingers. So we have our back thumb with the register key, 1, 2, 3 in your left hand, and then 1, 2, 3 in your right hand. And then you can put down the C key if you want to, and then you have to put down the innermost side key on your left pinky. Does that make sense? All right, so we go from A, just this, to all of these. So you have your thumb in the back, and then all of these down. I like to have the C key down with my pinky when I'm playing a C major scale, because then you can just lift up this pinky to go to C from B, instead of having to do something else. So that's what I like to do. You don't have to do that, but that's what I like to do. All right? And we can see on your sheet that the measure 1 rhythm is just 1 quarter note, and then the rest of the measure is 8th notes, all tongued. All right? So I'm going to play it first, and then we'll play it together. Ready? 1, 2, 3. All right, and we're going to go up to the C of the next measure, just to make it easier. Okay? So we'll play it together now. Make sure we're sitting up nice and straight, holding our clarinet right, not resting it on our legs at all. Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3. That was really good. All right, so now we're gonna go to the next measure. So the rhythm of the next measure is exactly the same as it was, and then we just go back down the scale. So we already know all the notes, so it's just gonna go backwards. So we start at C, go to B natural, and then we go all the way down to A, G, F with just this back, E, D, C. Okay? It's going to be practically the exact opposite of what we did before, except measure 1, we were tonguing everything, and now we're going to slur everything. Does that make sense? All right. So we're going to start at measure 2, and we're just going to go all the way back down the scale to C. Okay? And we'll hold the C for the 4 beats that the whole note is. All right, ready? I'll play it, and then we'll play it together. Ready? 1, 2, 3. All right, let's do it together. Make sure we hold that C all the way out for 4 beats. You kind of want to let go of it before that, but make sure you hold it all the way out to the end. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Awesome. So now we're going to go all the way through it, back to measure 1. Make sure we're tonguing the first measure and then slurring the second. It doesn't seem like that big of a difference, but here, if I play it, so measure 1, we're going to play it tongued. I'll just play it tongued, so it's going to sound like this. Okay? And then if you hear that articulation, and then we listen to how it is in the second measure when it's slurred, it sounds completely different. So I'll play the second measure slurred now. Ready? Do you hear that? There wasn't any break break in between the notes, that's why. When we tongue the first measure, we make a little bit of separation between the notes, so you can hear a little bit of space in between each one. But if we just do the slur, we just go right down the notes, all right? So let's do it all the way from the beginning of the concert B-flat scale, our C major scale. So I'll play it first, and then we can play it together. If you need to pause the video at all to practice any of it, or practice going from the A to the B natural, I know that's tricky, you can do that right now before we go through it, all right? So here we go. I'll go first, and then we'll do it together. 1, 2, 3. All right, let's do it together now. Make sure we're still sitting up straight. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Awesome. All right, so now we know our concert B-flat scale. So now we're going to go over to our concert G minor scale. So the same thing applies as we did with the concert B-flat scale and us having to actually play a C scale. You have to go up a whole step. So the same thing is going to happen with our concert G minor scale. So if the band director says we're going to play a concert G minor scale, we actually have to play an A minor scale. So we start on A, right? All right. So this key signature is the same as it would be if you played a C major scale. So for in C major, it's like you're playing a C major scale, except you're starting on A instead of C. Simple as that. That's really what this natural minor scale is. All right? So we're going to start at the first measure, and we're just going to do measure 1 up until the top A. So we're going to go all the way up the scale, but we're just going to stop there. Okay? So the first note, we start on the low A. So it's all this. So it's your thumb, 1, 2, 3 in your left hand, and then 1 and 2 in your right hand. So that's your A. Then we go to low B natural. So you just lift up your pointer finger. You don't go just up 1 because that's B flat, and we don't want that. Make sure we do B natural, so it's just this middle one. And then we go to C, and then we know the rest of it up to D, E, F, G, and then A. All right? So we're just going to do that much. So I'll play it, and then we'll play it together again. 1, 2, 3. All right, ready? We're going to play it together now. 1, 2, 3. Awesome. If you need to pause it and just play that a few times, that's okay. This scale sounds really weird. It sounds really like, if we play a C major scale, we know what it's going to sound like, but the minor scales sound a little different. They sound a little creepier and scarier, you know how it is. So, let's do that one more time just so we get used to how it sounds and we get used to going up to the minor scale, all right? So we're going to do the same thing we just did again. So I'll play it, and then we'll play it together again. 1, 2, 3. All right, let's do it together now. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Awesome. So if you see me bobbing up and down, I don't know if I explained this in the beginning, but I'm bobbing up and down just so we can make sure that we're trying to stay together, because if you might tap your foot to keep beat when you play with your band, but you can't really see my feet right now. So that's how I'm going to do it, just to make sure that we're staying together as best as we can. Okay. So now we're going to do the second half of the scale. So we're going to start on this A in the staff, and we're going to go back down. So it's just the exact opposite of what we did. We were doing everything is tongued with this one, as you can see on your scale sheet. So we start with this. We go A, G, F, E, D, C, B natural. Remember, that's his middle one, and then A. Okay? So I'll play it, and then we'll play it together again. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Awesome. And we'll just hold out the the whole note at the end on the A for the 4 counts. I didn't say that before we started, but we'll do that this time when we play together. All right, ready? 1, 2, 3. Awesome. Okay, so now we're ready to do the whole scale together. If you need a pause and go over the first half or the second half again, it's totally okay. But now we're going to do it. I'm going to play it first all the way through, and then we'll play it through together. All right? Let's do it. Ready? 1, 2, 3. All right, let's do it together. Now, just like I said with the other scale, make sure when we get to the whole note, you hold it the whole way out. It's going to feel like a really long time to hold it out because we've only played quarter notes and eighth notes up until this point. So they're relatively short values. So now when we get to this longer value, 4 whole beats, it feels like a really long time. So make sure that you're counting and you go all the way to 4. All right, let's do it together now. 1, 2, 3. Awesome. So now we know our concert B flat major scale, and now we know our concert G minor scale, and we now know that they have the same key signature, so that's why we did them. So it's like so. If we do our concert G major or our minor, our concert G minor scale, or our concert A minor scale, we know it's basically just like a C major scale, except you're starting on A instead of C. So it's all the same notes, nothing different, just like that. Okay, so now we're going to go through some practice tips that I've learned through my years playing the clarinet that I wish I knew in high school. So while we're practicing scales, let's talk about it because we all know they're not the most fun to play most of the time, but scales are really important to be able to make sure that you can play. So besides the fact that it helps you learn the scales and learns all the notes on your instrument, and you can do that faster, and it makes playing the music a lot easier. I know you hear your band director say it, and you don't always believe them, but say that you're playing this piece of music, and there's a bunch of like 16th note runs, and it looks really hard, but when you look closer, it's just kind of all the notes are in a scale, and sometimes you just go up a scale, back down the scale, and that kind of stuff. It suddenly seems a lot easier now because you already know that scale. So it's super, super important to play your scales. I know I did not like to play my scales when I was in high school, but it's really, really important. One thing that I learned is that you don't have to play all of them in the same day. That's a lot. Playing all your scales every single day is a lot. So you can just pick 3 or 4 maybe. You can do 2 or 3 depending on the day, but just pick some. Even if you don't have time to do 2 or 3, if you're practicing one of your band pieces, you can just play the scale that the band piece is in. So like what key it's in. So say you have a piece and for you it's in G major. So you can go through our G major scale, which is actually a concert F scale. So you can just play through that quick, and now you're ready to go and play your piece that's looks like for you is in G major. And that makes it a lot easier because now you know the key, you played the scale, so you're like, okay, I have to make sure I play F sharps because you played the scale and you know you have to play an F sharp. The same thing can go for our C scale. So how we talked about that B natural, or like when we played our A minor scale and we had to make sure that we played a B natural instead of a B flat, that's the kind of stuff that you know if you play your scales. So, excuse me, sorry, I have hiccups. So that's something that's super important. You also can switch up your scales to make it more fun. You could play different rhythms besides just the quarter note and eighth note one we did now. Or you can switch up the articulations like when we did our B flat scale, concert B flat scale, our C scale. We tongued the first measure, but we slurred the second measure. You can switch it so you slur the first measure or tongue the second measure, or you can even go note by note if you want to. You can tongue 2 notes and slur 2 notes or anything like that if you want to, just to make it more fun to play and interesting to do, which, will help you out in the long run. Doesn't really seem like it, but it'll help. All right. So the next one that I have, the next practice tip is to make sure that if you have this really long piece, like really long hard part in your band music, say you have like 16 measures of like 16th note runs, because when we play the clarinet, we had to play a lot of stuff like that. So a lot of 16th note runs that you play with like the flutes all the time, and you have this really long part and it's a lot of 16th notes. Definitely do not try to play through all of that and practice all of it, because what'll happen is you'll get tired, and some parts will go better than others. So what I like to do is, say you have 16 measures of like runs. What I like to do when I'm learning it, when I'm practicing at home and I'm trying to learn it, I'll break it down. So if you have 16 measures, say you do 4 at a time. So one day I'll just do the first 4 measures. So I'll practice the first measure, each measure individually. So the first, the second, the third, and the fourth separate. And then I can put together the first measure and the second measure. And I put them together to make sure I can play the 2. And then you can go from like the second measure to the third measure and put those together. And then the third and the fourth and put those together. And then you can put all the measures together and play it all 4 straight through. So now you know all 4 of those measures. And now if you're feeling like you're on a roll and you're doing good and you want to keep going, you can do it the same way. Just break it into 4 measure chunks, or you can just save the next 4 measures for the next day. And then within the next 4 days, you'll know all 16 of those measures. That seems more easily to accomplish than if you're to do all 16 at once. That's a lot. So that's an easy way I like to do it, but make sure, another practice tip is to make sure that once you learn that really hard part that we did before, you make sure that you go back and you keep playing it. So say you learn all these runs and you practice them and they're great, and then that's it. You don't practice them again, and maybe you get to this piece like once a week in your rehearsals, depending on how often you rehearse and if you get to that part in the music. So by the time a week later, you might forget some of it, and then you have to relearn it again, and we don't want to do that. You already put in all the work to learn it, and you don't want to relearn it. That would seem silly. So make sure that you keep playing it once you learn it so you don't lose it. I mean, you don't have to go through and sit there and practice it, 4 measure chunks every day, but what I like to do is, when I first start practicing, if I have a spot like that I know was hard and it took me a while to learn it and now I have it down, what I like to do is I like to, in the very beginning when I practice, I just run through that quick. So that way, I can still play it. Or if there's anything that's a little funky, you can go back over it. Like, oh, that one measure wasn't so good. Let me go through that again to make sure I don't forget it. So that way, that when you get to band in rehearsal, that way you know it all, and then you don't get there a week later and then you try to play it in rehearsal and then you forget it all and you get mad at yourself because you're like, oh, I have to relearn it now. But now you don't have to, as long as you keep practicing it. That's what's super important. You have to keep practicing it over and over. So what I like to do is, in the beginning, I'll do it every single day. So I just learn it, I learned it all, I put it all together, and then for the next week maybe, I'll play it every single day. I'll just play through the whole thing every single day that I practice. Right in the beginning, just play through it quick, and then work through anything and go in and practice anything that you need to after that, so you make sure you keep it up. But after maybe like a week or two, and as you get closer to your concert and you're like, yeah, I know this now, you can start doing it less often. Maybe every other day, maybe every 2 days, something like that. So you don't have to play it every single day, but that way you're still making sure that you can play it. That's the important part. All right. So my next practice tip is ways to practice without actually playing your clarinet. I know, it sounds crazy, but it can be done. So say that you just have a really busy week and you don't have the time to fully sit down and play your clarinet and practice, or maybe you just don't feel like it, you don't feel good. What you can do is you can just take your clarinet and you can just finger through all your notes. That's a really good way to, like I said before, you have this really hard part that you're just trying to make sure you remember, you can just finger through it quick. And then that's that. You're getting practice in, you're making sure you know your notes, but you're not actually playing. So that's a pretty good way to do it. I like to do this if I'm sick and I don't want to get my germs all on my clarinet. I like to do this a lot. You can do this during band rehearsal when your band director is working with another section. Your band director will really like that if they see you practicing when they're working with another section. So let's say that you and the flutes have this the 16th note run section together, and he's working with the flutes, and you know that your band director is going to come back to you and say, all right, clarinet, it's your turn, let's play it. So if you're fingering through with the flutes while they're doing it, now you know, first of all, where you are in the music, you don't space out and forget what he's talking about, and you had some extra practice in, so now you're ready to go. And maybe you can practice some stuff, those couple spots that you need to brush up on a little bit, now you're ready to go. And so now, there's some other things you can do like that too. I like to do this, the fingering thing too, if your band director is working with another section, like maybe they're working with the trumpets or the trombones or the percussion or something, and it doesn't really apply to the music that you have. If you have the same thing as them, you should definitely pay attention to what your band director says. Because that way, if he comes back and says, all right, the trumpets did it like this, clarinets were going to do the same thing, and you weren't really listening to what they're saying, that's going to be a little tough. But if you know that you don't have that part, you can go through and just finger through your stuff, and then you're not distracting anybody, you're not taking anything away from rehearsal, because we all know that we've had those rehearsals where a band director works with another section for a really long time, and you're not playing, and you start to get a little bored, so the first thing we want to do is we want to talk. And I'm sure you all know that your band director does not like it when you talk during rehearsal. That's like the number one way to get the band director in a bad mood, if you keep talking during rehearsal. So if you're fingering through stuff, that's a really good way to make sure that you're still paying attention and getting some stuff, getting something out of your band director working with another section. All right, so another way you can practice without playing your clarinet is if you're sick or something, or maybe you don't have your clarinet, maybe you brought your music home and you forgot your clarinet, because I've done that before. So what you can do, you can just take any old pencil or pen or anything, and you put your fingers on it like it's a clarinet. They fit pretty good on there, just like this. And then, like I said before, you can just finger through anything you like there. I do this all the time. Don't do it during class though. Make sure you pay attention, but I like to do this. You don't play the clarinet at all, because we all know that if you play the clarinet for a while, your lip can really start to hurt. That happens to me all the time. If you play the clarinet for a while, your face will start to hurt. So if your face starts to hurt, you can just do this. You don't even need your clarinet. You can just get out your music, or maybe you can work on memorizing your scales. Just going through this and pretending that the keys are there. I like doing that a lot. Really gets you in some nice scale practice without having to sit down and actually play your instrument. I like to do that. And one more way that you can practice without actually having the clarinet is without having to play it, You should have your clarinet for this part. But what you can do is you can take your music home, take your clarinet home too, to practice, and you can take out a piece, and you can go on YouTube and go online, and you can look up a recording of that piece, and you can finger along with it while you're listening to the actual piece. I like to do that when we get a new band piece, and the first time your director hands out this piece and you're sight reading it, you don't really know what it sounds like, because everybody's learning their part. It's probably much slower than it's supposed to go, so you never really know how it's supposed to sound. So you go home and you can practice those parts that seem hard, but now that you think you know your part, or maybe you want to figure out what's going to be hard, you can listen to something online, listen to a recording, finger through it, and then you can probably take out a pencil and you can mark in your music where you think hard spots are. You're going to go, oh, I know I'm going to have to practice this spot. This is some runs that just the clarinet's playing. I need to make sure that I can play it. Or maybe you can be like, wow, this section's really fast. I need to make sure that I can practice it fast enough so I can keep up with my band director. All right, so now that we went over those practice tips, before the lesson's over, let's go back over our scales one more time, play through them again, so make sure that we don't forget them. So we're going to start with the concert B flat and our C major scale. So what we're going to do is, just like we've been doing the whole lesson, I'll play it and then we'll play it together, all right? So since I was talking for a while, make sure that we're sitting up straight. Remember to hold your clarinet right, not rested on your legs, anything like that, all right? So let's play the C major scale, I'll play it, and then we'll play it together. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Awesome. So now we're going to play it together. So make sure if you need to practice it again or want to look over it again, just pause the video right now before we start playing it together so you can look over it. Okay, ready? Play it together. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Awesome. So now that was our B flat concert B flat scale. So now let's go to the concert G minor or our A minor scale, and we're going to do the same thing. So here I go. 1, 2, 3. All right. So pause the video now if you want to go back over it, play through it quick, or practice it, and we're going to play it together now. Ready? 1, 2, 3. That was really good. So that's all I have for our lesson this week. So make sure that you practice the scales that we learned today so you don't forget them, and can practice those up until next week when the next video comes out. And make sure that you can start trying to work those practice tips that I gave you into your practice routine, so keep it more interesting and keep it fun and exciting. All right, I'll see you next week. Bye.